At FIE, we're not just
students
and faculty.
We're not only learners
and lecturers.
We are expanding minds,
Expanding futures.
We're redefining the classroom.
We are life-changing.
eye-opening. We are a community
Driven by our values.
That wants you.
you.
Yes, you.
To join.
Hello, and welcome to In the Field, a podcast from FIE where we will be exploring all things study abroad. I'm Dr. Heidi James Dunbar, writer in residence and senior faculty, and I will be your host. In this episode, we're exploring an urgent and vital topic, climate justice in international education. Climate change is often framed as an environmental crisis, but it's also a matter of equity, power, and global responsibility. What does that mean for institutions engaged in global mobility, cross-border partnerships, and international programming? To help us unpack this, we're joined by Claire O'Malley, our resident director in Dublin and advocate for sustainability in higher education. Hi, Claire. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Heidi. How are you today?
I'm pretty good. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too. I'm very excited to talk about climate justice today and sustainability within the context of study abroad. I've been, taking a course lately about this exact topic. And recently, FIE last year was the sustainability sponsor for the Pi Live conference, which happened in Dublin. So there's a lot going on in the climate justice world. So very happy to chat with you today.
Fantastic. Well, let's start with the bigger picture. When we talk about climate justice in the context of international education, what does that mean, and how is it different from simply talking about sustainability?
Yeah, that's a great question. Great place to start. So when we talk about climate justice in international education, we're kind of widening the lens beyond just the environmental impact to include things like fairness and responsibility and like a lived experience. So sustainability itself usually focuses on just reducing harm in the short term to impact the long term. So this could be things like taking public transit or walking to your destination to lower carbon emissions, or promoting to eat local, to use fewer resources, and just making programs greener in general. But climate justice is going to ask deeper questions, like who is affected most by climate change and who is the cause of it? And also who gets to decide what those solutions look like to address these issues? So in a study abroad context, that kind of means recognizing that many students who have the means to study abroad are typically in the global north, and they could be traveling within the global north, or they could be going towards the global south. But if those are the main students traveling abroad, the impact of those decisions are going to be affecting the global south more so than the global north, even though the global south isn't contributing most to the problems. So climate justice itself is going to push us to think not just about how we run programs, but whether they're equitable, reciprocal, and accountable.
Right, I understand that. So it's not just an environmental issue, it's also about equity, power, and global responsibility. Can you explain a little more about how those dimensions might show up in international education?
Yeah, of course. So climate change is going to reflect global inequalities, and those inequalities are showing up very clearly in international education. So like I was saying before, there's this power dynamic in who gets to travel and whose knowledge is valued and how some partnerships are structured. So students from maybe wealthier countries are more likely to participate in study abroad, while host communities are going to be the ones that are absorbing the environmental and cultural impacts of that global mobility. So there's also this question of whose knowledge counts in these situations, like who is making the decisions? Is it local communities, or is it, people from the outside looking in? But local communities should be more valued because they have this deep expertise in environmental stewardship, and yet their perspective sometimes can get sidelined in academic programming. So it's really important that people who are living in the area are the ones that are contributing to decision making. So climate justice, bringing it back to that, is going to be more about reshaping power structures, ensuring that partnerships are not extractive would be a good word to use. And also, we need to acknowledge that institutions that are in higher emitting countries for emissions can carry the greater responsibility to lead on this change.
Yeah, this ties in quite a lot with my own research on decolonizing study abroad,
Yes.
actually, what
Yes.
you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be a
It's really
direct tie-in.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and this is something I sort of find I'm working through in my research. International education celebrates mobility, and there's lots that's wonderful. And students studying abroad, global exchanges, institutional partnerships. But of course, that mobility has a carbon footprint. How do we reconcile the many, and there are many benefits of global learning with those environmental costs?
Yeah, so this is one of the central tensions in international education. So, like you said, global learning can be transformative. I myself was a study abroad student. I know like directly what that experience is like and how it opened my eyes to the world. And I also get to experience it every time we welcome a new group of students into Dublin, because it builds character, it builds empathy and cultural exchange and just awareness that the world is such a big place and it's beautiful and we should celebrate that. But it also, of course, relies heavily on air travel, which is carbon intensive, especially being in Ireland. It's an island. You have to use air travel to get anywhere outside of Ireland. So this sort of requires reconciliation. And this reconciliation doesn't necessarily mean choosing one over the other. It means being more intentional. So that could look like hosting fewer but longer term programs. So prioritizing depth over frequency. It also could focus on integrating virtual exchange where it's appropriate. It's also about being transparent about carbon costs. And that's kind of why we've integrated this new initiative at FIE called Stay Local Abroad. And this is where we encourage students to travel within their host country, which can save money first and foremost for our students, but it also reduces the emissions of that airline ticket. And they're encouraged to explore nearby towns and cities where there's just so much to see. I myself haven't even explored everything that I want to within Ireland, and we're encouraging our students to do the same.
There's so much to see. So you're right. Yeah, it's about that depth, isn't it? And exploring more deeply in the locale, like the different foods and things, because it does vary so much across the regions, as it were.
Yeah, each region, like you said, they have their own personality, and you're never going to be able to get that if you're, jet setting off to Europe, which I understand. There's a lot more to see there as well. But there's just so much rich culture within your host community, and you should also pay honor to that and go see and go
there's more to
explore.
Ireland than Dublin, and there's more to England than London, right? I mean, so
Right.
much more. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, if you've only seen Dublin or London, you haven't seen Ireland and England all together.
Yeah,
You
I
need to
agree,
get
I
out.
agree. So who benefits the most from international education opportunities? And then, contra to that, who bears the environmental and social costs? And how do we allow that question to shape our decision making?
Yeah, that's a good one. So historically, the benefits of international education has been, concentrated among students from wealthier backgrounds and institutions, and then that environmental and social cost are more concentrated in the host communities, like I was saying earlier. So these host communities might experience a strain on local resources, cultural commodification, or even like a direct impact on the environment itself. So we have experienced a lot of buildings being made for hotels and student accommodation, which is great to host tourists that are coming in, and it's great for the economy. But the local environment might need more housing, like permanent housing for people who live in Dublin or live in London or wherever. So that's just one example. And then on a global context, these carbon emissions from travel could contribute to climate impacts that disproportionately affect vulnerable populations. Sorry. So this question is a great one, and it should push institutions and study abroad companies and universities to think about redistribution and accountability. So we should be asking ourselves who has access to these opportunities? How can we make this more accessible to students that need to experience this global mobility in an environmentally conscious way? We should also be asking, like, are our programs designed in a way that benefit the host communities as well, not just the visiting students?
Yeah, yeah. And how can institutions ensure that sustainability practices are not imposed in a top-down way, but instead co-created with our global partners and indeed students?
Right, yeah. So a climate justice approach in this regard would require moving away from those top-down models, like you said. So instead, institutions in the global north need to define what sustainable looks like. They need to engage partners as equal decision makers. So that means things as simple as listening first, understanding local priorities, constraints, knowledge systems, even. And that you mentioned co-creation might involve jointly designing programs with local populations. So that makes me think of FIE's newer program, the Borders, Mobility, and Migration, which is organized in Seville, but also our partners in Rabat, Morocco. And it's about global mobility and kind of that cultural exchange, and also kind of what that means for migration purposes, and it can tie in with climate justice and environmental impact of local populations as well. We can also look at, sharing resources more equitably, or even rethinking if travel is appropriate in certain contexts. Do we need to take a bus to this spot? Can we walk instead as a group? Even something as small as that can make a big impact. And lastly, I'd say that it requires a bit of humility. So recognizing that sustainable solutions are just not a one size fits all sort of solution, and that partners on the ground often have the most relevant experience to make these decisions. And you also mentioned students and making decisions with them in mind, and maybe even together. So recognizing what that looks like and what students want to get out of their experience, and how to make that more environmentally responsible, and how we can kind of deliver both at the same time. So again, it's that reconciliation between providing a good program, but also being responsible.
I was thinking about our international service internships that are really fantastic, where students actually work with local charities
Yes.
and institutions to provide service. I think that can be really vital, because that is about working with and co-creating, collaborating with the local community. Those sorts of things can be really, really valuable for everyone, I think. And finally, so thank you for your time, but I just wanted to ask, what gives you hope? Where do you see momentum building around climate justice in international education? Because it's very easy to sort of see only the problems and not see that there are solutions and they're already happening. So, yeah, I just would like to end on that note of hope, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I like that. Because, there's actually a lot of momentum building. So students themselves are increasingly climate conscious. They're asking these harder questions about the ethics of travel, and institutions are starting to measure and report on their carbon footprints. So FIE has our sustainability committee that I'm a part of, and we are able to band together a bunch of colleagues from all different departments to rethink program models altogether. There's also growing interest in alternatives, like I mentioned, the virtual exchange or those longer term immersion programs. And our partners are starting to center reciprocity and shared benefit. And there is a growing movement, and it's becoming more of a standard to be climate conscious. So what gives me hope personally is, I'd say, this shift in mindset, from seeing international education as simply a movement across borders to more seeing it as a space for responsible global engagement. It's about building that empathy for other cultures, not just from our own personal viewpoint, but from the viewpoint of this place that we call home, this whole earth. And that can open the door to aligning our field, which I believe so strongly in, to align closely with social justice, climate justice principles, and overall just making sure that we're taking care of this place.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. This has been really insightful and inspiring. Thank you.
Thanks, Heidi. It's been great chatting to you. I hope I get to do it again soon.
It's clear that responsible global engagement requires more than just reducing emissions. It demands attention to justice, equity, and shared accountability. And as we've heard from Claire today and discussed, climate justice challenges us to ask harder questions like who benefits, who bears the costs, and how can international education become a force for more equitable and sustainable futures. To learn more about our work in providing study abroad education, visit our website www.fie.org.uk. And if you've enjoyed this episode, check out our others wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you so much for listening. FIE provides life-changing study abroad experiences in the UK, Ireland and Spain. As a non-profit educational organisation, we are passionately invested in making a difference for our students as the future global leaders of tomorrow and the field of international education as a whole. The FIE podcast is a creative and academic space for exploring everything, the people, the places and opportunities that make your experience so valuable and exciting.
FIE, we're here to help you
Unlock a wider
brighter future.